relatively quickly after Corey Crawford was told he would not be re-signed by the Chicago Blackhawks. We had stories from Mark Lazarus and I think Scott Bowers as well, who, by the way, have a great podcast. And one of a Chicago Blackhawks fan pointed me in their direction. Talk about two guys that really know that team, and the two of them team up, and it's a great show. But Mark came out with an article in the Athletic with quotes directly from Jonathan Toews saying, Stan Bowman hasn't talked to us, but I guess we're going through a rebuild now. And Stan Bowman actually hasn't talked to anyone. Corey, so just to give you an idea, Chicago started last year with Corey Crawford and Robin Lehner. Robin Lehner went on to the conference finals as the starting goaltender for the Vegas Golden Knights. Corey Crawford put up a .928. Yes, he's older, but he did put up a .928 save percentage, which is still pretty good. The most Chicago offered him was a one-year deal worth $3 million. Now, Corey Crawford has obviously since moved on. The Chicago Blackhawks are very clearly preparing for some sort of retooling or rebuild. And everybody is mad at Stan Bowman. What's interesting about this is I think for the first time in about 3 or 4 years, Stan Bowman is doing the right thing. This is a team that started last year with Corey Crawford and Robin Lehner in net, and the best they could do was 24th. What are your thoughts on how Chicago's to handle things and what they should do going forward? Because Stan Bowman, haven't agreed with a lot of what he's done, and the Brandon Saad and the Artemi Panarin and the Zadorov trade, and we'll get to all that. But Chris, it's time for a rebuild in Chicago, isn't it?
It is, and I think the question you're not quite asking, but you're maybe leading me there, is like, will any of these star guys leave? Will any of them want to go? And I have to believe they won't. Like, I have to think of Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane, and I don't blame them for this. They in a lot of ways should be career-long Blackhawks, just because of literally transformed this organization. I think they're in their history, the Blackhawks won 3 cups before them, and they've won 3 cups with those guys. So, I mean, those guys are going to have a statue beside the statues that are outside that awesome building. They got a Jordan one out there, and Bobby Hall, Stan Mikita. Like, those guys are going to have a statue one day. So I think it's going to be completely on their terms. I don't think anyone's going to low-key try to push them out or whatever. So it'll be up to them. But there's other interesting guys on this team. Like, I know Duncan Keith in the past has had interest from teams, and he's got a no-move clause or no trade clause, and he hasn't moved it. But, maybe now with some of the writing on the wall, maybe those guys think about that. And it's probably too soon to handicap it at 100% and say which way it's going to go. But, clearly the core of those core guys are upset. And they're really upset at seeing Crawford go. Crawford was a huge part of that team. As you mentioned, he's still performing. Like, it's not like you're not letting him walk away coming off a 902 or an 888 or something. Like, he's still a really good player. And so there's some fences to mend there, but I'm with you. Like, it's going to be painful. You have a team, probably the best team of its generation, or certainly with Pittsburgh, number one or number 2. And, now you're going to see the dismantling. And I'll tell you, in Pittsburgh, we're not far off this day either. Like, they think they got another 2 seasons, next year and the year after, to try to take some swings. And they've almost drafted nobody. Like, they trade every pick that isn't nailed down, right? I mean, that's and that's like, I don't blame them. If you have 2 generational centers, like, the odds of them getting players as good as Crosby and Malkin at the same time again, like, they could play another 100 years as an organization and never have that. So, like, they should try to go for today. But, it's starting in Chicago a little sooner, but I think, Pittsburgh, within a year or 2, we're going to be talking about the same stuff. And then it'll come down to the same thing. Does Malkin want to chase another cup, or does he want to finish his NHL career in Pittsburgh? I can't imagine a scenario where Crosby leaves, but who knows? Pro sports is weird.
What I found interesting
is a cap, so anything could happen.
Yeah. Well, what I found interesting about this, though, is that Toews and Kane, especially Toews, and he is the captain, there was a sense in the quotes that he wanted to be, and I'll read some of the quotes to you guys. Tell me if this is your same interpretation. Bottom line is, I want to win. This is what Toews told The Athletic on Saturday. The expectation for our leaders on this team and myself is to come ready to training camp every year to be a playoff team. We prepare ourselves to win a cup for our fans. I've never been told that we're going through a rebuild. That has never been communicated to me, for that matter. A lot of this comes as a shock because it's completely different direction than what we expected. Crawford said he was devastated after he got the phone call from Bowman that they would not be re-signing him. Toews said it's sad. It's really disappointing. Crow has given so much to this team. I feel he could be ready to bring more in the next few years and still be a big part of the group. He had that mindset that he could help this team go deep in the playoffs again, and there's no doubt that he could. And like we said, sure, he performed well singularly. But there is, I mean, obviously the Brent Seabrook deal is hanging over this organization's head. If Brent Seabrook, which he's trying to do, makes a comeback and is fit to play, it puts them in a really bad spot. And I hate to say that because that's the Cap world we live in. Brent Seabrook, the best thing that could happen to the Caps is he sits on LTIR for the remainder of this contract, financially speaking, not talking about emotionally. But beyond that, if you have Leonard and Crawford and net performing as they did last year, and the best you can do is 24th, what else is Stan Bowman supposed to do? Now, I wouldn't say, a couple of years ago, one of the worst trades I think we've seen ever in the NHL, that Saad for Panarin deal, has hurt them and hurt them and hurt them again. And now he's taken Panarin, and then he had Saad, and now he's traded Saad and had to retain $1 million on each of the next 3 or 4 years on that deal just so he could get Nikita Zadorov. It's a very... I'm not necessarily agreeing with the way Stan Bowman's going about it, but if I could say one thing, Stan Bowman is absolutely right. They need to do some sort of retool rebuild here. How do you do it?
Well, you don't lose a fourth trade involving Brandon Saad because they've lost 3 already. So I think that's a good place to start. Yeah. This is where it's hard. Honestly, I can see this from Taves' perspective. I mean, look, let's remember, and obviously they were gifted a spot into the playoffs with this, return to play format, but he played great in that play-in round against Edmonton. Jonathan Taves looked reborn. And even if you look at some of his statistical last couple seasons, he's still been producing at a level offensively where he still looks like he has some juice left. Patrick Kane is still a star, frankly, straight up. And so I can understand why those guys don't want to see this happen, but Stan Bowman works for the owners, and the owners have to think what's right for the organization long-term. And their long-term contemplates a time when Jonathan Taves and Patrick Kane aren't playing for the team anymore. And so that's why I say this is just an awful spot. I mean, if I'm them, I don't know how cutthroat you want to be. I wouldn't even try to trade those guys. I would say to them, look, if you guys want out, you come to me, but I'm never coming to you saying I have a trade. But if you get to a point where you're not comfortable, my door is open and I'll listen to that because we want to do right by you. You've done so many great things for the Blackhawks organization. But I think it's a really delicate time there. And, I think he has to continue down this road. I think he should probably try to trade everything that isn't nailed down and that isn't these core guys if he can.
And that isn't Dominic Kubalik, right?
Right, of course. And, maybe – and we'll see what DeBrincat is. I know last year didn't go as well for him, but he's still a young. They're just in transition. But I think that they should try to reload. Honestly, Boston reloaded. Everyone forgets, Boston missed the playoffs a couple times with this core. And then they could have won a cup last year, and they've been one of the best teams in the league since then. Pittsburgh reloaded between 2009 and winning their next cup in 2016 around the star players. I would try to convince Taves and Kane to see this through and be relentless in trying to build a better team around them because, again, this is your greatest generation. Why not? The only thing better than their story is if somehow at the end of this they win a late career cup for Kane and Taves. I mean, that would be pretty cool, right?
Last dance.
Even if they don't, three titles. I mean, the 3 banners will fly forever there. These guys are legends. But I think the way I would do it is not trade those players because once you trade them, you're signing up for 8 years of being bad. Detroit had no choice, but look what happened to them when Datsuk had to go and Lidstrom had to go. It's a long road back to respectability. And I believe they'll get there under Steve Yzerman, but it takes forever. And so I would still be convincing those guys to, maybe have a conversation with them. It sounds like that's what Jonathan wants. I mean, I didn't talk to Taves, but based on those quotes, it sounds like he just feels a little left out in the dark on the plan. But I think the plan should be built around them, but be ruthless about it. And, that probably means finding somewhere else for Brent Seabrook too. I think it means potentially trading Duncan Keith. I think you really gotta go for it. Being half pregnant doesn't work.